One thing that separates great players from good players is their ability to play clearly and accurately, even at high speeds. We hear amazing, fast fills by players like Jaco, Pino, and Sheree Reed, or killer solos by Dario Data, Johan Larsson, Victor Wooten, among many others. Most players want to be able to play fast, but they get stuck in their practicing. They practice with a metronome, increasing the speed. They learn difficult bass songs like Teen Town or Dean Town or Donna Lee, but there's something missing in their playing. I believe that the problem is usually found in their inability to articulate. What makes all of the players I mentioned so amazing is their ability to communicate clearly and accurately, regardless of the tempo. In this video, I will show you how to practice articulation correctly so that you can increase the speed and accuracy of your playing. Also, I'll discuss what it means to have timing problems, and why if you think you have problems with your timing, you probably don't. The solution is closer than you might think. Okay, so number one, volume and dynamics. One of the main challenges on the electric bass is its limited dynamic range. Some instruments, such as the upright bass, have a very wide dynamic range. What I mean by this is that it has the ability to play very quietly and the ability to play very loud. And within that spectrum are many different tonal variations as well as volume variations. The electric bass works a little bit differently. The difference in tone between the electric bass being played quietly and the electric bass being played very loudly or aggressively is much more limited. Furthermore, because of the high output of many of our pickups, the actual dynamic range that we can produce is also quite limited, meaning that we can only get so quiet and we can only get so loud before the instrument limits us. Many things can make this problem worse. If we have very low action, we're actually limiting our dynamic range. If we play with a compressor, we're of course limiting our dynamic range. If we play with active electronics, they can often have such a high output that it can be difficult to play very, very quietly on these instruments. Because the bass has such a limited dynamic range, we need to be even more in control of our dynamics and articulation on the bass in order to make those things really pop out. So the way that we can improve our speed and accuracy on the instrument is by first getting really in control of our articulation and dynamic range. By choosing to play some notes strongly and loudly and other notes quietly, we create a sense of groove. We allow the listener to more easily digest what we're doing. We're saying, here's the beat, here's how you're supposed to be hearing what I'm communicating to you. So the way that we practice this is by simply practicing playing loudly and quietly within the same line. Okay, so in this first exercise, we're going to play a minor pentatonic scale, but we're going to focus on accenting every fourth note. So it's going to sound like this. So all I'm doing is just climbing up and down the C minor pentatonic scale. Okay, so once you can do that and you can accent every fourth note, what you need to do now is to exaggerate that accent. So what I'm going to do is on that accented note, every fourth note, I'm going to play it extra loud, and on the other notes, I'm going to play it extra quietly, like this. Okay, so the next step, once you can do that, we're going to practice accenting every third note. So. Again, we're going to focus on playing the accented notes very loudly and the unaccented notes very, very quietly. Okay, so the next thing we're going to discuss are timing problems on the bass. So the great jazz guitar player Kurt Rosenwinkel has a clinic here on YouTube where he discusses timing problems in some of his students. And what he says is that timing problems are usually not the problem. They're the symptom of another problem. What he means by this is that what people think is a problem with their time, maybe their time is inconsistent or it's inaccurate or they have problems playing a certain passage quickly or in time, it's actually a different problem. That's the symptom of a technique problem. So many players that think that they have bad time, they actually don't. They actually have just bad technique, or they have problems with their technique that are limiting them. Sort of the definition of what a timing problem might be is more mental than physical. So what an actual timing problem might be on the instrument is your inability to hear something wrong with your time. If you can't hear something wrong with your time, but maybe you're getting feedback from the players around you that there's something wrong with your time, likely you have a timing problem, and you'll need to address that in a different way. Here's a story about a time that I had an epiphany about timing on the instrument. I was at a local club checking out a really, really great guitar player. I really admired his ability to play very, very cleanly, very fast. While I was there, I made a recording of one of his solos. Over the next couple of days, I went home and I transcribed what he was doing. I was trying to figure out, how can he play so accurately? Why does it sound like his timing is perfect? I had spent a lot of time with the metronome, really trying to dial in my timing, my eighth notes, my 16th notes. There was something missing. I couldn't quite get what it was that he was doing differently than what I did. And what I found in transcribing him was that actually his timing wasn't really that much better than me. He just played in a way that sort of fooled the ear into thinking that he had much better time than he did. And he did this by choosing certain notes to play absolutely perfectly. What he did was, on every beat, he played very, very strongly. And the notes in between the beat might vary quite a bit, but because he played so strongly on the downbeats, it made it sound like he had much, much better time than he really did. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a G major scale starting on the 5. So it's going to sound like this. And we're going to play them in 16th notes. In every 4th note, we're going to play very, very loudly. And what this does is it gives the ear a sense of pulse. Da 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 da. If we just focus on accenting just the beats, we'll do a really good job of improving the sound of our 8th notes and our 16th notes when we play fills. So the final exercise that we're going to do to work on our articulation and our dynamic range is a little bit more tricky. So instead of playing a pattern, what we're going to do is we're going to improvise a string of 8th notes while accenting every 4th note. And what we want to be able to do is to just sort of keep that train moving. And we want to practice keeping everything moving forward, okay? So you can do this with a metronome, or you can just do it on your own. And it's going to sound like this. Okay, so to summarize this video, what is seen as a problem with your time is often not really the problem. Most players do have good time. They understand that there's something wrong with their time, and they can also hear really great time in other players. The problem is that they don't have really strong control of their articulation. So as you go forward, listen to really great players play. When they play a line, which notes are they accenting? It can be quite subtle on this instrument, again, because it has quite a limited dynamic range. It's not often clear that they're really highlighting certain notes. But if you really want to nail that sound, dig into it, try to figure out what they're accenting, try to figure out exactly what they're doing to make that line so clear and accurate. And most of the time what you find is that by accenting certain notes, you spell out the idea much more clearly. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed the video. If this type of content is useful for you, please subscribe, leave me a comment and let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot.